This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it, you can qualify it through a variety of methods: time, people, places, and things. But at its heart and at its core, the Auburn experience is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and of course, the Auburn family. And to put a finer point on it for you, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So let's get into what we do here for episode 108 of the Auburn Experience podcast. My name is Kyle, as your host, and alongside me, as always, co-host, the best co-host in the land. We're going to start off on a good note, Austin. Austin Scott, welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much, War Eagle. To you, Happy New Year, right? I think if you're listening to this is our first episode of 2025.
Yes.
So Happy New Year, War Eagle, and it's always the year of the Tiger here, right?
It is always the year of the Tiger because it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger, to be associated with the orange and blue, ups and downs, highs and lows, all the different ways. We wouldn't choose to do anything else but be associated with the town, the school, the sports, all that different things. So we got all the good feels going for a brand new year.
Right.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong, Austin?
Nothing.
Right?
Nothing could go wrong, right?
It's not a roller coaster ride. We won't have gut-wrenching disappointments, but also exhilarating highs of things you never saw coming, like rushing a field for a team that you didn't think you were going to rush against. We didn't know that was going to happen this year or this past
year.
Right. 2025, man, just look out. It's going to be wild because it's the Auburn experience after all, and certainly that's what we cover here. Obviously, we want to get into a bunch of different things in this episode. We'll start off with our Auburn potpourri, as we always love to do. We have got some exciting news because this is breaking as of about an hour ago, maybe, Austin, where some more transfer portal news for those of y'all that were just thriving off of all of the transfer portal just madness that was happening in December before Christmas that nearly killed me. I hope y'all enjoyed it. It nearly killed me. We're still here, at least in smaller doses, talking about the transfer portal. Chris Murray of Sam Houston State has reportedly, this is only a report as of this time, as we're recording this, by the time you're watching this, maybe it's already official, will be signing in the transfer portal with Auburn to be part of the team as a edge defensive line position with reportedly 1 year of eligibility left to play. So, Austin, I guess this is really truly a reaction because this is fresh news for us when we're recording. Thoughts on the addition of Chris Murray coming from Sam Houston State?
Yeah, Chris Murray, an edge position guy, formerly. We'll see how he's used at Auburn. Definitely a position of need, if not for depth more than anything else. You lose guys like Jalen McLeod, who have been very productive for Auburn at the edge spot, another transfer. So hopefully, I think they're looking for Chris Murray to replicate his production during his time at Auburn. And also, it's always good to have somebody on the opposite of Keldrick Falk who is just as talented, if not, no one's just as talented as Keldrick Falk, let's be honest, but someone to complement him. So I know that's what they're hoping for. I love when Auburn is able to get guys. I know it's flashy and more of maybe a solid thing when Auburn's able to get guys from other power conferences, but I like the guys that come up from the group of five because you don't know what you're going to get, but there a lot of the times it seems like these guys, just like Bruce Pearl talks about with basketball, are relishing the opportunity to compete at a bigger stadium, a bigger pro, with all the bells and whistles, and prove themselves. So hopefully that's the case for Chris Murray.
Well, and to point that out, to go further with what you said there too, Jalen McLeod, who we all love, and he's gone now. He came from a group of five or group of six, now whatever you want to call it, because it's so weird with all the conferences these days, and was ready to take the next step. Clearly he was. So who says that even with 1 year of eligibility, we've seen, no matter the position, guys make great usage out of that 1 year. Dorian Mausi at linebacker was another example of that. So, and remember, folks, Sam Houston State is officially up at the same level as everybody else now. It's still weird for me too, but we'll get used to it in the ever-changing world of college.
You can
football.
play with them in NCAA 25. So
you can. It's very weird to be talking about them in Division I college football, but we are going to be happy about adding Chris Murray from Sam Houston State and look forward to watching him in 2025 for Auburn football. Let's move over to some sadder news because it is important, I think, for us to talk about it in any regard, but certainly when there is an Auburn tied to it, it warrants being discussed here. And I don't relish having to talk about these subjects, but I think most of us know now of the New Year's Day terrorist attack on the city of New Orleans, and how horrific and tragic and senseless that was, and how so many people have lost their lives. Families and friends have been affected greatly, people suffering, and I'm sure there's great stories that have come out of that, of people stepping up for others. But we are sad to report that, and has been discussed this week, that there was an Auburn graduate that lost his life in New Orleans that night when the terrorist attack happened. Drew Dawson, sadly, did pass away as an AU grad. And we are just so heartbroken for his family and his friends, and just not the story that I think you or I ever wanted to have to address in this podcast, but it is certainly and sadly part of the Auburn experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really sad to see several young people were part of the attack and lost their lives because of it. And that's always sad to see. I did, it kind of was was I wondering, was Auburn going to have to make a statement? And unfortunately it looked like that was the case. And so right. Definitely prayers to his family. Kyle and I fully believe in the power of prayer and all that it can do, even in times where it feels like the lowest of lows. So there are many prayers going out to his family. I encourage all of us to join in those. And Kyle, there's a GoFundMe, correct?
There's a GoFundMe. I was going to mention, you can just search up Drew Dawson GoFundMe, and I think it comes right up. I think I did the test myself, certainly to help with expenses that are going to come with what takes place after this, and just to support the family. But the support needs to come in the power of prayer, certainly if you're able and willing to financially. But I hope that in some way that the love of the Auburn family is being felt by Drew Dawson's family, and certainly everybody else that was affected by this horrific terrorist attack. And hopefully these are less and less stories that we'll have to talk about in the future. But until then, our thoughts and prayers specifically with Drew Dawson and his family. Switching gears out of that, let's talk about another sad story, but it's more of a lighthearted sad story. And we like to cover these typically because they're very local, very niche Auburn topics. But it's also sad because we're talking about, again, the changing of the dynamics of Auburn, the town, the university, all that stuff. Another closure for what I would call a staple, frankly, Austin, of Auburn culture, of Auburn dining experiences. And that is the Tenda Chick over there on Glen and Dean. I believe I'm getting the streets right.
That's right. Yeah.
I used to work
technically Dean, but yeah, right there in technically that intersection.
Dean. That intersection. I used to work at the Walgreens right across the street from it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I frequent that Walgreens a lot.
I frequented a lot for 4 years. Too many. But anyway, this is about Tenda Chick. Look, I will scream from the heavens for basically every chicken place out there. So if you're someone who owns a chicken place in Auburn, hey, talk to us. So anyway, we are glad to support anything out there. But I think obviously this is a big deal for a lot of, especially locals, Auburn people, because this thing's been around for 20 plus years, I think, at this point, maybe longer.
Maybe longer, yeah.
And it's closing. This is just sad, Austin.
It's sad. It's one of those. And look, the fried chicken in Auburn debate in the E2C network culture is rampant. And one day that will make it to an Auburn Experience episode. But they happen in the group chat every so often. But Tenda Chick was always a part of those because it's one of those. When you had Guthrie's in the gas station right there, it was I used to call it the fried chicken capital of the world.
It is fried chicken at that corner. My goodness.
But now Guthrie's left, and now Tenda Chick closes. But really, really sad news, just because local people, good Auburn family who've been around and just wanted to have a business in the community. I read the owner's statement, and just they survived COVID, but just with the way things have been in the economy and the world the last few years. It ended up being too much. I hope that they're able to open again somewhere else. It seemed like that door wasn't totally shut based on his comments.
Sure.
But definitely a sad moment. Definitely a lot of fond memories for people at Tenda Chick before. I had no idea about Tenda Chick until in college, and a good friend of mine, Jacob Coley, who's from Jacksonville, Florida, had found Tenda Chick and said, "This is my favorite place." And so he took me to Tenda Chick. Someone outside the Auburn Experience until he got to the school took me to Tenda Chick, and I had to break the news to him last week.
Yeah, sad news, obviously, for the Auburn family. And it's sad in general, just when you talk about it being a staple and it closing, but when it affects a local family in the Auburn area that you want to support, whether, we were talking about the hardware store in downtown closing, about a year ago, I guess, close to it. And now we're talking about Tenda Chick. So when will it end, Austin? When will the tragedies and the suffering end? When will we stop losing all of these Auburn staples? I don't know if I can take it anymore.
Well, the world, I'm certainly a nostalgic person myself, as are you, and tend to cling to tradition. But to hit something close to home for you as well, the world is a carousel of progress. And
Oh my.
sometimes we just keep on moving,
What is going on here? 2025 is just coming all of aces for you, sir. Nailing the good things for me there. That's a little inside softball. Okay. I don't know how to recover from that one. Moving on to another story in the Auburn Potpourri segment. Talking about the football program and the football. We already talked about the roster a little bit with an addition to the transfer portal, but some news that is still a report. I did check the coaching list online about a day ago before we're talking about this, so maybe it's changed since then. But the reports are, as we move forward with Charles Kelly becoming the Jacksonville State head coach, and I'm sure some others that I'm not thinking about at the top of my head that have already happened, there's going to be just a little bit of movement. Thankfully, not a lot of movement thus far in the Auburn coaching space. TJ Rushing is somebody who's been elevated up to safeties with that exit, which is a great thing for him, or at least the report was, is that what he was going to be. Now, Tanner Burns, our current special teams coordinator, is also going to get an elevation of sorts, at least in responsibilities, by sliding up and helping with the star position on the field at Auburn. So not just special teams reportedly for Tanner Burns, but the star position. So my question to you, Austin, is just thoughts on the addition of that to his responsibilities, but does this complete all the needs in your mind that Auburn now has in its coaching staff, but specifically the defensive coaching staff?
Yeah, it's a good question, and not a solution a lot of people I think saw coming. With Tanner Burns having a big role in special teams, definitely interesting to give him responsibilities with the star position as well. I think he has prior experience with that, so that definitely lends itself to make sense. I'll be interested to see if there's still an edge coach out there to be hired. I think that's still probably a position that can get a coach of its own. Vontrell King Williams is also obviously very young, doing very well in the recruiting space, has done very well with Auburn defensive line as a whole. But that edge position has become kind of such a pivotal point in the new college football era that I think that we'll see an edge coach hired at some point, would be my guess. Someone DJ Durkin likes. We'll have to see what name, maybe those names start coming out later on. But if I had to guess, I think that you still see a name there to round out the staff.
Yeah, I think it's definitely on the table. It wouldn't surprise me if there was an absorption of sorts of certain responsibilities that would have fall under a defensive edge rushing position, whether that's absorbed by DJ in and of himself or some responsibility with Vontrell being expanded. I do like, whether we're talking about TJ getting an elevation, whether we're talking about now with the special teams coach getting an elevation, with our young guys getting more and more responsibilities, because that's continuing to help build that coaching tree for Hugh Freeze here at Auburn, and build up this young talent that's recruiting well, but also putting some great stuff out on the field. So I like seeing that. So that's your latest addition for coaching news for Auburn, and thankfully it has been very few and far between so far in this offseason. Just a quick round out of the rest of the Auburn Potpourri stuff we won't have time to dive into, but I do want to give some shout out to Jamian Sherwood, who is officially the MVP of the New York Jets. You'll remember Jamian was part of several years of Auburn teams here, and it's probably a little bit forgotten at times and shouldn't have been. Very similar to a Darius Slayton story, where he really took off when he got to the NFL and found the right team. So shout out to Jamian Sherwood as a former Tiger getting the MVP, voted by his teammates for the Jets. Deshaun Davis, former Auburn Tiger, is officially hired on to be linebackers coach with Charles Kelly at Jacksonville State. So shout out to him as well. So just two big shout outs to former Tigers making either coaching or playing accomplishments. And then finally, I just found this kind of cool, unique. There's a new dining option in Neville Arena, the Chop House. AU, we always have to throw that in there, in the Hall of Honor area, and it's a barbecue option. I actually probably want to talk about this, not just this specifically, someday soon with you, Austin, but we'll find some time to maybe dine in to talk about dining options at some of our sports facilities for Auburn. I think
love it. Is that the nacho place that they advertised recently, or
it would be the barbecue joint now in the Hall of Honor? I'm not sure.
Where is the Hall of Honor?
It is actually where all those banners hang down, what used to be the Hall of Fame. So it's they kind of redeveloped it. So that's why we'll talk about it and dive into the reusage of that space when we need a special topic coming up very soon. But that'll round it out for Auburn Potpourri. We still got plenty to talk about, though. So saddle up for two main topics. But first, I do want to talk to you about somebody that you are clearly very familiar if you've been listening to us for quite some time. But just because they're familiar doesn't mean they don't have something new for us to share with you. But let me ask you about this first. Do you understand the concept of mental wealth? Some would define that as the balance or management of elements of your personal life, such as your sleep, your diet, exercise, for a sustained positive effect over several days, if not a lifetime. You can try your best to balance these things, but sometimes a little bit of extra something is required, as we all probably know. The key is to find that right tool, that right thing that you can add that doesn't fight against your management of those elements. There are a lot of things out there that can help you, but let me tell you about our friends at Magic Mind, who you should know very well and very, very familiar with partnering with us. In fact, let me encourage you not just to think of them as helping you function better during the day, which we've talked about a lot, but to get well-rounded sleep as well. Consider using their mental performance shots, as we discussed previously, but also now Magic Mind Sleep Elixir. A little bit about those Magic Mind products for you. The performance shot is not a replacement for coffee. We've talked about this before. It's actually intended to enhance the effects that you try to get from your coffee. So think of it as in addition to, especially if you're a coffee drinker. About the Sleep Elixir, it helps you wind down faster after your long day of mental focus into a deeper sleep. You can combine them now for a full day of benefits. They've got a 24-hour bundle for focus and sleep shots, which is out currently now. We'll talk about a deal in a second. And just as a reminder, this is all done through a scientific advisory board of doctors and medical professionals to evaluate the safety and effectiveness of their 10-year formulas. And in fact, they're so sure about everything that they've built here with Magic Mind. If you're not satisfied, 100% refund, no questions asked for 100 days after buying. Get 45% off now of a Magic Mind bundle with the link magicmind.com/theauburnjan. That is spelled TheAuburn the Auburn Jan, and try that new sleep and mental focus bundle. And again, if you're ready to try this, to invest in your mental wealth, the resilience of your mental wealth for 2025, think of our friends at Magic Mind, their products. 45% off that Magic Mind bundle with the link magicmind.com/theauburnjan. All right, our first major topic tonight, Austin. It's basketball season still. If you didn't forget, and I'm super jazzed up because the Auburn Tigers are doing awesome. They're rocking and rolling. And officially, we are in SEC play. Get pumped, Austin. Are you pumped?
I'm pumped. It was 1 week of SEC and 1 week of not SEC, or one. You understand what I'm saying? 1 week of one SEC game.
Are you actually ready for the week ahead? Like, come on, we gotta get focused.
Oh man, I'm still exhaling from attending the Monmouth game and not having to come on the show and hear all the jazz.
Now, listen, that was in a lot of our minds when maybe we got off to a little bit of a slower start. It was Austin there. We got the confirmation you were there. A little bit concerning.
But we won.
And handily did we that. So let's start there because we're talking about the basketball week that was for Auburn men's basketball. We are going to talk about Monmouth and then, of course, talk about the beginning of SEC play versus Missouri. And let's be honest, we did discuss Monmouth, I believe. Well, actually, it was after our show last week. But regardless of that, we kind of already discussed the ending of non-conference play and rounded that out, Austin. I would assume nothing's really changed for you, just this solidification of what you already thought about Auburn's performance in non-conference play after what they did at Monmouth.
Yeah, correct. One loss through the hardest non-conference schedule in Auburn history, and an emphatic win against Monmouth to round it out. Definitely think solidifies everything we said last week about this team going into conference play, and now we have the hindsight at least of seeing how they looked in their first conference game.
And can I just say I'm so thankful that we don't have to say Monmouth much more,
I know,
because that is Monmouth, but that was pretty interesting. Now, they did get off to a slow start in that game, which we kind of alluded to. We were going to blame you about. Is it as simple as it was that long break for the holidays, Austin, or do you give some credit to Monmouth? Because I forget the guy's name, but they had a pretty prolific shooter, and they came out firing all cylinders with threes. If I'm not thinking of this incorrectly, so it was a pretty hot start for Monmouth.
Well, absolutely was, and let's be honest. Even if we remember the name, I think if I remember correctly, we would have trouble saying it. Knowing you, that has nothing to do with the young man. It has all things to do with the linguistics of Kyle and I.
And if you've heard, I'm prone to misspeaks as well. Very unfortunate misspeaks. So just 2 episodes ago. That's all I'm going to say.
It's a new year, Kyle.
It's a new year.
That didn't need to come up.
It's not going to happen again.
Anyway, but yeah, I credit Monmouth. I mean, they came out shooting it. I think a little bit of the break is natural to kind of have some rust to knock off. But to see them bounce back, even against Monmouth, to see you take some adversity and how you respond to it is always a good thing. Mm-hmm. So good to see. And now it's big time basketball here ever all the way through March. So it's in and out. You better be ready for some adversity.
Yes, they round out 87-58, and that score is not indicative of how much they beat Monmouth for their final non-conference game. SEC basketball. We have heard it talked about, Austin, a lot, that Auburn basketball, but SEC basketball this year, every prognosticator is saying is the best conference thus far when you look at it top to bottom. There are projections for 12, and I said that right, folks, 12 SEC basketball teams making postseason play into March Madness. And that's outlandish, Austin. Like that should not be happening for anybody in my mind on a regular basis, but just it's shocking to hear SEC 12 teams potentially are expected to make March Madness. What does this mean for Auburn? Like, what does this mean for their path to a regular season, a conference tournament title, and all of the above? What does this mean for Auburn?
Well, first and foremost, it means it's going to be a bloodbath every week. Like there are no off weeks. Missouri didn't win a conference game last year. I thought the broadcast, it was hilarious that they talked about they haven't won a conference game in 600 something days. And they still were a formidable opponent for Auburn. More than half of their non-conference schedule was. It's just the way this league has been. And I thought Bruce Pearl's done a really good job commending the league for taking basketball more seriously. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think Auburn has a lot to do with that because they started taking basketball more seriously. And that led to another in-state school saying, well, we're going to take basketball more seriously because we're not going to let those Cal people get ahead of us. And then the rest of the conference stepped up. And so I think that it's proof of that for one, but also that you have to take care of home court first and foremost. And Auburn has the best college basketball atmosphere in the country at inside Neville Arena, but they will need to take care of home court advantage, win their home games, and then take what you can get on the road because it's not going to be easy to win anywhere in this league. And so I will be very interested to see who comes out of this league as a regular season champion and how many losses they have, because it could be quite a few and it still be a very good team.
Yeah, I think you should prepare yourself for Auburn to lose a few, as should every SEC team. And I think if I'm not mistaken, Austin, you and I did a quick preview a couple episodes ago of what we thought would be a win-loss opportunity for Auburn. You came away with, I think, 4 losses when we just went through the schedule. I came away with 5. That's been the trend this year where I usually pick like one more loss than you or things like that. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I'm the eternal optimist. I also know what games I'm going to, so
Oh, that's the real trick right here. But hey, folks, now for your betting odds, just know when Austin's going to the game.
There's 2 more right now, so I'm definitely not announcing those, but
Well, when you want to decide to let me in the game too, that'd be nice. So
I'd be happy to tell the friends that are taking me that I have another friend that
there's
who has better odds of winning than I do.
Just remember, as you sit inside in nice warm Neville Arena, I sit on the outside, like with my hand on the mirror, or not the mirror, but the window.
Can I give you a hint though that because of prices, they're both away games?
That's fair. And that's kind of what's happening. But those away games are getting pretty tough too.
They are
to go to because everybody's catching on to that idea to become a witness of Auburn basketball. Let's dive into Missouri a little bit. 84.
Great video this week, by the way, about witnesses. Hilarious.
Oh yeah, it was a great one.
Sorry, you said it and it made me think of it.
No. This is a great thing because I want to give a shout out to Stephen Leonard and his team. I know there's other people that help, but he's obviously one of the big names behind that, if not the biggest name. And he frequents some of our content sometimes. So I want to give a shout out to Stephen and thank him so much. Again, I've said it 1,000 times through our ETC account, my personal account, whatever, about the great work that they do, how he's brought me to tears and laughter and real tears before, and just outstanding work as always.
It was great
from Auburn creative teams at large, but we're specifically giving thanks to Stephen and his team for what they continue to do. And what I love about it is they embrace the silly side of this. Like, I feel like they were I know they weren't, but the first Auburn account to start really diving into, you know what? We could just have fun with this and just be ridiculous and throw shots at people. And
the meme culture helped a ton. My favorite part of that video was an AP voter was one of the fake names that they used.
Oh, the AP, they need some help. Anyway, we'll take care of that on the court. We won't worry about people's opinions. Anyway, thanks to them. That was a good little quick aside there, a tangent of sorts to give a shout out. The Missouri game, 84-68, the first conference game for Auburn. We've already set it up. Don't take anybody for granted. And I think what you saw Missouri, a team that didn't have a single conference win at all last year, they've gotten a lot better, a lot more talented. And I think we saw with maybe what some people were discussing in our post-game stream on YouTube, a little bit lackadaisical at times. Had they not built up the sizable lead they had, this could have gotten a little bit more interesting for Auburn, Missouri, even in Neville Arena. But still, Auburn comes away with a pretty solid win behind some amazing three-point shooting last night. Wasn't that fun to watch?
Oh, absolutely. And you read the score there, and it was close. It feels closer than it was at times. But I think it really shows that this Missouri team fought, and they made it closer toward the end. Sure. When some of the walk-ons were able to get in, but this team, I'll go on a hot take for you, Kyle. Missouri's going to win an SEC game this year. I know I'm stepping out big there.
It's quite the step out. It's hard. You know what? To go 2 years in a row without a single SEC win, I think is impressive. Like not. You have to try.
It'd be really, really hard to do, I think, even in this league. But I think that Missouri is going to get several wins this year. I think they're a much better team. They've added transfers. I like Dennis Gates, their head coach, a lot. Mm-hmm. I thought that this team was much better than Auburn saw last year. Really interesting, though, and I think Justin Ferguson of the Auburn Observer mentioned this, that we played Missouri at the end of the year last year, and now we're playing at the beginning of the year, and we don't play them again. It's just always odd SEC scheduling. However, I'm really glad we don't have to see this team again as they kind of gel more together through the SEC schedule. Because, but a good first test for Auburn in SEC basketball play, to know that the team that got 0-18 last year is still going to put up a fight like they did is big. I would not put too much stock in that Auburn struggled or that any individual player struggled, because I think that you're not going to see how dominant this team was in the non-conference at times every week anymore. Like, the level of competition, the level of physicality is going up. It's going to be not a more normal Auburn team. I still think this is a great Auburn team. Not good. I think it's a great Auburn team.
Right.
But you're going to see them take their lumps a little more. And that's okay. You want that. I think that's good in basketball. So we'll see. A great start to the SEC season. I think you'll get a very similar test against Texas this upcoming week. Team not really having their best year so far, but still a very talented team, well coached, in a hostile arena.
Well, and it's exciting too. First year with them
Yeah.
in all sports, but certainly for a shot at men's basketball, you get to go to Austin and take on that, and followed
What?
by what? What?
Did you say my name? Sorry.
No. Oh,
Oh.
God, you're such. This is 2025, Austin. We're done with the dad jokes. Just because you got twin boys doesn't mean you get double the dad jokes.
I think
show.
it does. That's a great point.
You have met your quota for all years of us doing this podcast. I promise you at this point. Hey, I thought I messed up again. And he's like, wait, it's one of his dad jokes again. How many times have you done the Austin, Texas?
I really haven't. I was just about to say that. I really haven't.
Victim?
And I was just waiting for a good time, and that was it.
God, why do I do this every week? Okay. Anyway, so we have several other games that we're going to be talking about. Likely, what you can probably anticipate us doing a segment on basketball each week here on out. For the most part, there may be a week where if there's a lot else going on, we might forgo it for a week, but we'll have on the Auburn Experience a pretty solid segment each time to talk about what happened in the week of Auburn men's basketball. You think so? I think we can manage that.
I was telling Emily, it's really nice. The non-conference is a lot of fun, but it's really nice when you know you've got 2 games a week, and we got a midweek.
Just playing it.
The weeks go by a little quicker because you just know you're looking forward to each one. And so I'm very excited. Now the Tuesday, Wednesdays change. I think we play this week at 8:00 Central, 9 your time.
Yeah,
I don't like that. I don't love that. But but it's okay.
But we know it's happening. You know to expect a midweek as weekend. We are in the consistent season of Auburn basketball going forward. Final thing I want to ask you, and like I said, you predicted 4 losses. I predicted 5 when we were previewing SEC basketball. Has anything changed with this last week that makes you want to raise or lower your 4 SEC losses for Auburn?
Nothing drastic. If it was, it'd go down probably to 5, want more, just because of the league, just because of the competitiveness of the league, and that you just never know. Now I don't know who. I don't even remember who I said the 4 were way back when. But I think that there is something about this league that you could, if you're not ready, you could get bit at any moment. Thankfully, I think Auburn's coaching staff is incredibly talented, incredibly efficient, and well prepared. Has this team well prepared that won't be the case very often. But I still think 4 to 5. You and I are on it as of right now.
Where I'm at in that with my 5 predicted, I am not ready to move that. Definitely not going to move it up right now. I think 5 is pretty solid in terms of a prediction. If we get out of this road trip unscathed, you might see me pushing down and saying only 4, but things are going to change. That's just how we're feeling at the moment. It might be a fun kind of thing for us to catch up on each week to see where we stand in our feelings of what our early predictions were on SEC results for Auburn basketball. But folks, saddle up. It's going to be fun. If y'all thought non-conference was fun, SEC basketball is going to be even more fun.
Yep.
Just wait. All right. Our final topic tonight. We love to give you the Auburn Experience. It's in our name. But within that experience, there's a variety of things. Certainly a lot of emphasis on sports. And from time to time, we feel that it is appropriate to be your guides of sort, to give you advice on what you could do to enhance the Auburn Experience. That doesn't mean you have to be in Auburn to do that. However, for this topic, we are going to be giving you advice this winter, which I think you and I would probably quantify as January, February, and some of March, your best times to come to Auburn and what weekends you probably should do it, because there's a variety of things happening. So we may not get to all of them, Austin, but I have looked and found about 3 weekends that I think are prime, like set up very well. Obviously, There's a lot of men's basketball, but I believe one of them is not. Set up for you to come and have a great sports experience, but also utilize opportunities to come get some great food around Auburn, so you don't have to miss places like Tender Chick before they go away. It's not a hint that something else is happening, but certainly other things that you can do. You're the one that came up with this topic idea, to give you credit, and I think is a great idea. The weekend that you gave as the example, I think, should be our starting point, and it is the first one on that calendar when we look at it that we were kind of observing. So I'm going to give you the floor, sir, to kind of explain which weekend you think they need to be focused on and why that is.
Sure. Yeah. We talked about this. Gosh, Kyle, how many episodes ago was that?
Probably before Christmas, well before Christmas.
Yeah, kind of maybe when the basketball schedule kind of came out,
Mhm.
and we were kind of looking at what days would game day be, what days would certain weekends be the best to come if you want the full Auburn experience. And I think that we kind of landed on that weekend of the 25th, which is Saturday. And that is the headliner of that game is the Auburn Tennessee game at 7:30.
Boy, oh boy.
And even back then, we had no idea. We had no idea it was going to be that big. Safe to say game day will be here, right?
It's got to be. Listen, can I just say right now, ESPN, Jay Billis, who else is on there? I just need to call everybody
out.
Seth Greenberg.
I think Reese Davis hosts it. I don't know. Andrea Carter.
All you people, if y'all are not in Auburn, Alabama for Auburn versus Tennessee, look, both teams could take a loss or two before then. I mean, it's still several weeks left in this month before this happened. If you're not in Auburn, Alabama for that, you've done something wrong. You're not doing your jobs. And I'm sure that you're great employees and you do your jobs well, but you're not doing your jobs if you don't end up in Auburn, Alabama for college game day for that event. Maybe it's already planned. It just hasn't been announced yet, but I'm going to put that statement out there in the world, see what happens.
I think it's a shoe-in. And if it's not, we got problems. Looking like number one versus number two. I'll leave it to the imagination of our listeners of who I think should be number one. But I think that is the shoe-in, and that day will be the headlining of the weekend, right? Can't miss weekend. Even if you can't make it, how fun would it be to be here? I think it's going to have a really big atmosphere. But let's say you do come in for the weekend. On Friday, you can come in as early as 3, and you start off with a place that a lot of people probably don't get to go to as they come into Auburn at the James Martin Aquatic Center.
It's awesome.
See the Iron Bowl matchup in swimming and diving between Auburn and Alabama.
The Iron Bowl.
The Iron Pool.
I think iron and pool and water does not mix.
It's just rust.
We need to ask. The Auburn chemistry department is screaming at us right now for not being able to recite this.
The Rusty Iron Pool rivalry. The Rusty rivalry. There you go.
I love it. The Rusty rivalry. Iron. What happens when iron and water mix? The Rusty rivalry. Wow. We said we were going to start 2025. I say can't even talk.
We're making
2025 off on a good note. And clearly we can't talk. We're coming up with lame things. But hey, we'll work through it.
The Rusty rivalry is your first start to the weekend. Huge weekend for Auburn swimming and diving with Alabama coming to town. Once you're done there, which you'll have plenty of time. Maybe you can go find something to eat. Maybe you'll try Kyle's Little Italy and sit on Langdon. It'll probably be freezing cold, but hey, you could do it. It'll be cold, but you can do it.
Don't tempt me with Little Italy sitting on the steps of Langdon Hall, people watching with the sunset of Auburn. Don't tempt me with my new favorite Auburn thing.
It's probably going to be very, very cold.
I don't care.
But you could do it. There are things, if it's your kind of thing, there are things at Little Italy that take away the cold. I'll let you partake in that.
This is a family show.
We are not condoning that. But you'd have plenty of time to make it over to Neville Arena for Auburn versus Oregon State, which is neon night at 8:30 for gymnastics, with a certain U.S. gymnast Jade Carey coming to Auburn. Auburn Neville Arena is no stranger to seeing U.S. gymnasts inside of it. Olympic gymnasts, that's correct. So it should be a really fun night there. 8:30. That is well past my bedtime usually, so I don't know if I'll make that. But the next day, though, you'd have, like we said, I'm feeling pretty good about game day being there. I think that'll be the whole day. It's a 7:30 tip for Auburn, Tennessee already. It's always weird when you think about how they do. If you can get into game day, do you have to stay? I don't think they make you stay the entire day. So it'll be interesting to see if they just open game day up.
Yep.
And then get everybody out. Now, there's another component to this, though, with game day and with the matchup, is that, and I guess you would see this if you go to Neville Arena, Pearlville / Jungle Village / whatever is going to be in full force. Yes. And if you have not seen that with your own eyes, it's worth going to see. I'm sure Kyle will be out there taking plenty of footage for those that can't be in town. But if you have not seen that with your own eyes and you're looking for that, I would highly suggest you make it that weekend. And then the next Sunday, you have a great women's basketball matchup with Auburn and Florida inside Neville Arena at 2:00. So you can get the full Auburn experience and have a really fun time doing it on that weekend. That's mine.
That it's hands down
pretty good.
The best weekend. Now, I've gone back and forth whether I should even mention this as part of the weekend, but there is a memorial happening as well on Thursday for Brother Chet, and that early in the morning on Thursday. I don't know. There's not details on if it's going to be open to the public. They kind of announced it like it was going to be. So I don't know how that's going to be managed. We don't have details on that. That is just me speculating at this point. So if you want to help honor and celebrate Brother Chet, who we've talked about in previous, that if you want to include that on this, there's another thing going on campus. So, all the good things that you could want, though, between swimming and diving, the rusty rivalries, we called it, gymnastics, maybe college game day, maybe Pearlville, Jungle Village, whatever we're calling it, men's basketball and women's basketball on the same weekend. It doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't. But if that doesn't satisfy you, let me give you at least one other option if we have time for a second one. I don't know if we will. So the weekend of February 7th, which would be that Friday, to Sunday, the 9th, could potentially be another option for you. You could extend this to Thursday because women's basketball will be also playing on Thursday versus Texas A&M. So that's your first thing. But that Friday, Equestrian is they're in Auburn for Minnesota Crookston. So if you like the war horses, if you want to go see Auburn Elvis, hang out with him over there. They're going to be back in town to play Minnesota Crookston in Auburn. You could also see softball in action I believe it's a tournament that they're in Auburn. Yes, with North Carolina, Southern Illinois. That's all I can see on my chart right now at this time. But some of those teams, gymnastics that evening versus Georgia. That's all Friday. We just talked about Thursday and Friday. Saturday, men's basketball versus Florida. Todd Golden, the protege during certain points of his coaching career under Bruce Pearl, comes back to Neville Arena. Thankfully, we're not playing them in Florida. That's another option for you, too, on that weekend. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yes, women's tennis is playing one matchup on Sunday as well. And swimming and diving, double checking, is in Auburn for some sort of a meet as well. That's a lot going on in that weekend, Austin. So if you can't make that weekend we just talked about, this is a great option 2 weeks later.
It's a great option. And I think there's a lot more variety here, right? Like you'd see softball, women's tennis, women's basketball, men's basketball, swimming and diving. So I think that, that certainly all of it's quality. Certainly all of it is something you probably can see that you haven't seen before, but much more variety in the second week of February. With the diamond sports getting really close to going full speed.
And speaking of which, to round us out, just very quickly, the next weekend that I think that you probably should be looking at is going to be that final days of February, the early days of March. Similar to what we talked about here, variety. You've got softball in town for a showcase, a tournament event. Rutgers, I'm seeing here, McNeese State, Louisiana Lafayette, I always called it, but Louisiana. Baseball is going to be out of the town, actually. I just realized that when I said that. Gymnastics, welcoming Oklahoma. It's fun talking about Oklahoma and Texas being for the first time in all the sports. They're going to be in town. And then I think this is the weekend that, Equestrian here for Georgia. That's here. Now, basketball is going to be gone, but there's so much going on, whether we're talking about all these other different things that we've discussed. There's also another swimming and diving event, I think, that weekend as well, if I'm looking at the correct, and men's and women's tennis. I get the headliner is maybe not there for you in terms of basketball, which we think about it, but just consider these as some of your options to come for Auburn in the winter time, or winter, with March being kind of in our conversation here. Is that, you think we've given people enough to look forward to and to plan for?
There's plenty to look forward to. Your weekend trips to Auburn don't just have to be in the fall, and don't just have to be a Saturday day trip for a basketball game. Come to Auburn, enjoy the town, enjoy all it has to offer, on top of working with seeing a lot of our hardworking student athletes that you might not get to see as often. A lot of it's free too. Let's not forget that. A lot of it is you just walk on in. So bring the family, spend your tax dollars in Auburn, Alabama, and have a great time.
That is not in any way an endorsement from a resident who will benefit from those tax dollars. Well, speaking of benefiting from money, as a quick plug, anytime that you are attending ticketed events for Auburn, please do, especially if they're like for the major things, basketball, even football in the fall, consider using SeatGeek and our affiliate link E2C Network, the letter E, the number 2, the letter C Network. So you can get yourself a little bit of a discount for that first time purchase. And it'll help go if you purchase them on SeatGeek, which is the official partner of Auburn. It supports us in a way. And certainly, obviously, we would appreciate you doing that. But there you go. That's your Auburn experience and what we recommend for you. There are plenty of other weekends that we didn't discuss, but those are 3 that stuck out to us. And we hope that you guys find time to come to the loveliest village on the plains, even during those somewhat very chilly, some people hate it, some people don't, but months of winter. That's going to do it for episode 108 of the Auburn Experience podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and hanging out with us today. If you want to keep up with me, do so on X at Kyle Loomis 24. Probably be posting a sad post about all my lights coming down for Christmas finally outside soon. And
is it done?
It's started. It has started.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it has. But if they want to keep up with you for much happier things, where can they find you?
Yeah, at Austin G. Scott on X on Instagram. We're happy to see it all. We attend women's basketball games when we can. It's a great way to get the boys out and get them running around. Miss Steve Ford knows all about seeing us there. So there'll be plenty of Auburn content coming soon.
Absolutely there will, whether here on our personal accounts, everywhere else in between. We love sharing the Auburn experience with you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.
War Eagle.